What is happening out there, rotoscouts baseball fans? I forgot to check if the mic's on. The mic's on. Also, I'm noticing in the video here that I, again, forgot to trim my beard, my mustache, and everything. Anytime these get down, like, those little tendrils start creeping down over my lip, it makes it annoying to drink coffee and stuff. I can see it on the camera, but, oh well. You're not here for my presentation, my beautiful face. You're here for this baseball info. Like Matt Tomlinson says, some of the best info in the industry. I appreciate that, Matt. We can get rid of some of the qualifier if you want to from now on. I mean, I'm happy to just take the mantle of best info in the industry, buddy. Obviously, we're being a little bit facetious there, but welcome to the show, everybody. Appreciate everybody coming in and hanging out in our little club here, our little secret show that we do every day. Spread the word, let your friends know, or don't. Keep the advantage to yourself if you consider it an advantage. But I love doing this. I love hanging out with you guys every day. So really appreciate everybody coming and hanging out. Hit the like button. Hit the subscribe. We've got a really short slate today. 5-gamer. It was 6 on FanDuel, but then they rained that one out the minute that I stopped typing about that first game, which kind of sucked. If you check the article today, it's all crossed out, but that was probably the longest section, game by game, that I wrote about, was that Angels-Tigers game. I thought it was an interesting spot. I really like Pablo Sandoval. It was kind of annoying to see that one get scratched. I was looking forward to that and the early start and everything on FanDuel, but a little 5-gamer on both sites, rather. I think it's a fairly deep pitching slate, given that we've only got a limited number of selections. There's not that bad a pitching slate on deck. So there's a lot of different directions to go and a lot of guys who project out very, very similarly to one another. So I think there's going to be some interesting choices to be made. I think it's a slate where you can either spread out really easily on a slate like this because there's just not that many options to have to cover. So it's easier than when there's like 24 teams to choose from. Or I think it's a slate on which you can kind of just choose to make some stands. You can say, hey, I'm going to occupy this position in a big way that's different from what the field's doing. And maybe you get a little bit ahead of the curve that way. And it's relatively easy to do, again, because you're not sacrificing all that much. You've got extra shares to play with. Edward B., hello from NJ. Hello back down toward NC down there. What part of North Carolina, Edward? I like North Carolina. I've been a couple different times. I've been through it a number of times on drives and stuff, but I've been to it a couple times. One time when I was a kid, we went down to Duck, down on the Outer Banks down there. Some fishing, some fun in the sun type of thing. And then when I was in college, we went on a ridiculous road trip down there to find a lost person in a drunken stoner kind of a way. Was a big grand adventure that one day I'll share the full story with you guys, maybe when we've got a little bit of time to spread our wings and talk stories and whatnot. But yeah, big ridiculous road trip. We ended up finding him in Durham, North Carolina. Had nothing but a photograph and a fake name to go on, and we actually found him. But that's a story for another time. But yes, I like North Carolina quite a bit. Any GTA folks in here? GTE or GTA? GTA I like. Grand Theft Auto? I could play some of that. I actually have to get that for my PS5. I've got I had it on PS4, and I finished the story, but I didn't do I'm not a full completionist video game wise. I'll do a lot of the tasks and the quests and everything along the way, particularly if there's story involved and everything. But once I finish the story, I tend to not, like I in Red Dead, I haven't gone and caught all the fish or hunted all the animals. I'm not big on hunting the animals either, for whatever reason. I know they're like video game animals, and even in Elden Ring, I find myself not inclined to kill the innocent animals that even if they're not based on real animals. It's weird. But yeah, I do like GTA. That'll be fun when they release the next-gen version of GTA too. What I have to get into also is the online GTA. I never really got into that, but that game's just a blast. You can fire that game up anytime in any kind of a mood, have serious video game fun, looking to achieve things and accomplish things and play a clean game, or you can just be pissed off at the world and just go in there and just blow people away for a while, and healthy outlet for that kind of a thing. A Gaming the Edge fantasy, Lone Wolf says. All right, put it in the Discord. Okay. Oh, that's all right. That's the one that you drop in from time to time with the show links in there. Yeah, totally cool. I invite that, particularly when you. I know that you share my stuff back the other way, Lone Wolf. So I appreciate that, and I welcome it, and I hope those guys have good info because I haven't had a chance to check them out yet. Dave Schneider, no, I'm not. I'm not with Stochastic anymore. Had a parting of the ways with them last June. and then I was still doing content with them up until the start of this baseball season, and then we just kind of parted ways. No acrimony on my side, no hard feelings or anything. Jose Altuve in the lineup for the Astros today, back from the IL. But no, doing my own thing now, so that's Rotoscouts is all me, my site, my ownership, and doing this kind of a thing solo right now, but we'll see what happens going from there. But like I said, yeah, no hard feelings whatsoever back toward the folks over at Stochastic, particularly like the content guys, most of the guys behind the scenes. I was friends with EMAC. He's in my fantasy league and the ongoing dynasty league still, and I plan on him being in that league for a long time. A lot of the other guys, social friends, friends with via the shows and everything, don't keep in touch with everybody, but would have no issues wanting to keep in touch with everyone or seeing them or whatever. So again, zero hard feelings on my side, outside of maybe with the ownership. And not Alex. That's not who I'm talking about when I say ownership. I think I've told most of the story. EMAC is in the Rotoscouts Discord, but we don't want to get EMAC in trouble. I don't know if he's allowed to be. News God's in there too, but he doesn't really post. They went to shit after Awesome sold. Yeah, I mean, it wasn't actually a sale. It was just a name change. The Awesome to Stochastic thing. That was part of my departure. I think I've shared this in the past. I had a long, big, drawn-out argument trying to convince ownership that that new name was really stupid. And it didn't go my way. But I was willing to, it wasn't entirely that drove me out of there. But a lot of differences of opinion with ownership on stuff like that. And more how it was handled. Like, at the end of the day, I didn't really care that we were going to change the name of the company. It was more, hey, we're doing this on Tuesday. And that was on, like, the Friday before. And I was running customer service. Normally, when you change the name of a company and you're billing people for a subscription and you have a website and so on and so forth, you put effort into planning something like that. You don't just drop it on your key employees. So it was more about that I was pissed off about. And then a whole lot of other things, particularly the relationship with Fantasy Cruncher, which I know I've gotten into on this show before, which is why I'm IP banned by Fantasy Cruncher. Difference of opinion about professionalism, how to handle things like customer support, how to deal with people in public, so on and so forth. But I digress. Let's get into this slate before we make enemies by accident. No hard feelings out there, Stochastic folks. Not looking to pick any fights with Fantasy Cruncher. Just here sharing stories and answering questions. That's all. Not here to pick any fights. Not here to get in trouble. Po-DJ Stoners in the chat. Wake and bake DFS baseball bitches from Garden City, Colorado. Lone Wolf says Terry will start our own. David Schneider's in the chat. Dennis is here. Edward B. Edward, no, I don't sell the projections right now. I'm thinking I'll probably have something projections-wise for football. I haven't really decided anything ultimately, but right now I'm not selling the projections, but I'm not selling anything. Everything's free right now, so you get what you get, but it's all free. So right now we've got the stacks tool, which has the aggregate projections for for each team, along with a value points per dollar mark, the pitching rankings. So everything's ranked. Everything's ranked for home run power. I make the home run picks, and then I do the deep dive article and the deep dive show. That's all. Oh wait, I don't want to step on anybody's name. It's not the deep dive. It's the overview article. Do I even have a name for that thing? I think I go back and forth between like overview and a couple other things, but I do a big overview article game by game, and then I do the shows and go game by game, and we dig in. Hopefully we hit all the marks, but right now I'm not selling anything. Stay tuned for what I'll potentially sell in the future. All right, let's get into it. Dennis says it is a stupid name. Now I disagree with you, Fanatic, on what you're saying there. I do like most of the guys over there, the public facing guys and everything. So I've always gotten along with those folks. No issues with those guys. But yeah, I just don't like the idea of intentionally misspelling a word just for the purposes of intentionally misspelling a word, as if that's why people go to Google. It's not like, oh, that's a cool way to spell that word. Let me go there and use it for all my internet searches. Like, it's not the case. Trav, the Discord should be linked in the description of this video. If that one doesn't work, let me know. I'll drop a new one into the chat. Or here, I'll just drop a new one into the chat. Just in case. I haven't updated that one in the description yet. Or recently, rather. I know it expires every now and then. But here. There you go. Free Discord. Discord's free. Everything on the site is free. If you want to hang out and buy me a beer sometime, that'll be the cost of everything right now. That's about it. If you ever see me in public, feel free to come up and say hi, offer me a beer, ask me to buy you a beer if I've cost you money. Hell, I don't know. Let's get into this one, gang. Mets and the Yanks off the top. Interesting matchup. Two lefties. Carlos Rodon, Jose Quintana. Obviously two very different pitchers, both coming back from injuries. Rodon's made 3 starts already. Quintana's made 1. Rodon not pitching nearly like himself. Was really kind of ugly in 2 of his 3 starts. Had an okay start, considering that it was in Colorado. He gave up 4 runs in that one, but struck out 6. The other 2 starts, not so good. I'm kind of concerned about Rodon. I was looking into his pitch profile, like in the small sample, what's he done so far as far as velo, as far as spin, and all of that, and it all looks okay. It's just not coming together well so far. So in the 3 starts, it was 5 1/3 against the Cubbies. He allowed 2 runs on a home run, 4 total hits, struck out 2 only, and walked 2. That was the concern in that one. He wasn't terrible in that one for runs, but he only struck out 2. Second start was the Coors Field start, and then the third start was the one where he didn't flip off the Yankees fans behind the bench, but he blew them a kiss. That was a huge story here in the New York tabloids. He'll probably get booed by these assholes for it tonight, but we'll see what happens with that. But in that game, he went 4 1/3, allowed 6 runs on 4 hits, 2 homers, walked 5, struck out 3. The efficiency is not a good mix with Aaron Boone's quick hook. Like, if he's walked a few, struck out a few, gets into a jam in the 5th, I think he's going to get yanked. I think Boone gives him that quick hook. Overall, in the 3 starts, only 14 2/3 innings, but striking out 16.9%. Last year, he was a 33 and change strikeout weapon, 33.4 last year, 34.6 the year before. So this is half the strikeouts that he normally gets. Again, very, very small sample, but not pitching well. 13.8% walks is essentially double the walk rate. 6.27 xFIP under the 7.36 ERA. So the runs that he's allowed have been runs that he's basically supposed to have been allowed. It's not like the runs have come with like a 3-something xFIP. 11.1% barrels, 42.2% hard hits, 6.15% home runs, giving up a fair amount of home runs in just the 3 starts. So pitching to a lot of premium contact right now, not finding his strikeouts. Going up against a Mets team that does have premium contact in the lineup, gets Tommy Pham back in the lineup, although he drops to 5th with Vientos hitting 2nd. That's kind of interesting. I like that configuration. Alvarez is in the lineup for the Mets. Lindor, somebody's missing that I'm not landing on. Maybe it's just Vogelback not being in the lineup. But yeah, I just don't love the idea of tangling with this Mets team. That said, Rodon 9,000 on DK is a playable number. 7,600 on FanDuel is highly, highly playable. This is a guy with, again, a 30+% strikeout rate. One of the strikeout artists in all of baseball. One of the top pitchers in the game when fully healthy and going right. So I will absolutely throw some darts at 7,600 on the FanDuel slate. You can see he projects fairly well. And that's actually worth taking a quick look at. Let me spoil the end of the show. We'll jump over. All these guys are essentially the same today. Strider, Fromber, Stroman, Rodon, and even Heaney are projecting essentially the same. Quintana is basically in that mix, a couple points behind Alex Wood as a follower, a bulk reliever, a couple points behind Lance Lynn, couple points behind, and then these 2 guys aren't pitching. I took them down. Patrick Sandoval was actually right in this group as well, but we had to take him out. But both of Hogan Harris and Brian Bayo kind of bringing up the bottom of the board. But a lot of playable pitching today, and all of these guys. You can play the ownership game. You can play the price game with any of those guys. They all just are essentially the same to me. I think Strider's not in a great spot pitching in Fenway against that lineup. I don't love how he's been pitching, although some of it's been like we'll talk about it when we get there, but some of it's been like, they left him in for an extra third of an inning that they should have yanked him after he pitched 6 clean and had a great game, gave up some runs. So some of his run damage is a little bit not really real, but I think he's a little bit mortal in this matchup today. So I've got a lot of the pitching projecting similarly. Man, this afternoon slate's going bonkers. 8 runs for the Mariners, 7 for the Marlins, 5 runs for the Nats, 8 runs for the Guardians, 7 runs for the Twins on the opposite side of that Mariners game. Jeez. Peralta, dominant game. Jose Ramirez, dominant game. Sandy, dominant game. Sandy's back on form, by the way. Complete game today, 5 hits, 1 run, 7 Ks. Good game. Anyway, back to the slate in the future, not the one from the past. Just had a bunch of stuff popping up on my phone there, so I had to take a quick peek. So Rodon's very interesting. I think given that he projects right alongside all those other guys for much cheaper, totally worth going to. Quintana on the other side. Quintana's a good pitcher. He went 5 innings in that first start. The hell is it? He faced 20 hitters in 5 innings. He allowed 6 hits, only 2 runs, only struck out 3, but didn't walk any. That was against the White Sox last week. What I liked is that he faced 20 hitters. So he's going to throw a decent amount of pitches. In the first start back, they let him do that. I don't think they're worried about the arm or anything, so I think there's realistic upside to a 6-inning start, potentially clean innings against these weak Yankees, potentially a handful of strikeouts. I know that this doesn't look great in terms of just what he did in the last game, but looking across the board, 20.2% strikeout rate and 165 2/3 last year, and then 28.6% strikeout rate 2 years ago in 63 innings. Granted, that came with an 11.8% walk rate, a 6.43 ERA, but a 3.75 xFIP. A good, not great pitcher, a capable veteran, a guy who knows how to pitch clean innings. Last year was good. 2.93 ERA, a 3.72 xFIP. The strikeout number came way down year over year, but still 10.6% swinging. That plays against these Yankees. Only a 1.18% home run rate on 5.5% barrels last year. That I believe that was higher the year before. Smaller sample, 11.9 barrels, 4.04% home runs. So he's kind of all over the map, but I think there is believable upside in Jose Quintana here against these Yankees. It's a weird version of the Yankees lineup with terrible Isaiah Kiner-Falefa. Can I say that? Can I say terrible? Bad? Weak? Left-handed also? Isaiah Kiner-Falefa leading off today? Aaron Boone saw a 314 on-base percentage and a 254 batting average and said, damn, we got to have that in the leadoff spot. 7.5% walk rate. He doesn't strike out that much. Creates runs 8% worse than average. Put him ahead of all the premium bats in the lineup. That makes sense. Really question some of Aaron Boone's decision-making from time to time. Glaber's good, or at least serviceable. 4,900, 3,000, 16 home runs, leading the team with a 113 WRC+. Stanton and Rizzo, obviously, tremendous power upside. 3,000 apiece for those two, and for Glaber on the FanDuel slate. Very, very cheap for the power core of the Yankees today. DJ, Harrison Bader, Anthony Volpe, Kyle Higashioka, all flawed players. DJ's having a bad season. He fits into multiple positions for a cheap price, but he's not been good this year. The strikeout rate went up from 13.1% to 22.3%. When that was coming with some premium contact, a little bit of power at the beginning of the season, it was like, okay, maybe he's just changed his approach at the plate. Now he's just not doing anything. 232, 301, 373, 14% worse than average creating runs, 8 home runs on the season. Just been bad. Bader and Volpe are good for counting stats, but really, really inconsistent. Neither one can really be relied on other than putting them in as a dart throw. They don't hit for average. They don't get on base consistently enough. 280 and a 283 on base percentage, 89 and an 83 WRC+. Higgy, great contact profile as a cheap catcher. Maybe you get a cheap home run out of him, but inconsistent as well. Oswald Peraza, I think, should probably be in the leadoff spot. He was far more interesting earlier in the day when I had him projected in the leadoff role. Good player, good prospect. Low end so far, 61 plate appearances, a 73 WRC+, 4 stolen bases. But in 216 plate appearances in AAA this year, 12 home runs, 11 stolen bases, a 234 ISO, a 108 WRC+. Last season, across AAA and then a very brief cup of coffee in the show, 20 home runs, 35 stolen bases. Oswald Peraza is a player. He is a guy who was coming up alongside Volpe. There was a lot of discussion about which one's going to be here first. He very well may be their everyday second baseman, and Gleyber Torres might be on a different team next year. They like Peraza. He's a good player with a high-end pedigree. Fills 3 positions for 2,300 on FanDuel. I just wish we were getting with more opportunity for plate appearances at the top of the lineup rather than inept Isaiah Kiner-Falefa. Kiner-Falefa comes through from time to time. He can get some base hits every now and again, but he's a slap hitter. He's a weak link in this lineup, a weak link in a weak lineup. So I think there's upside for Quintana. I definitely think there's upside for going to the Mets against Carlos Rodon here, the struggling form of Rodon. You might get burnt by it, so it's a both-sided situation for sure. But Brandon Nimmo, I like a lot from the top spot. 7.23 in the home run model. He's got 15 on the year, 47.2% hard hits. Gets on at a 359 clip and creates runs 27% better than average. So he's a very good play for correlated scoring and for individual contribution. I like Nimmo a lot because he's never expensive. He's never really all that popular. Like, he draws some popularity when the Mets get popular, but as a one-off or as an individual within that lineup, he's never their most popular bat. Vientos is very interesting, 2,400, 2,300 hitting second. First base on DK, third base on FanDuel. Sucks that DK is making you decide between him and Pete Alonso. That's just stupid on their positioning. So they give the Mets no third baseman and make you decide between that kid and Alonso. That sucks. Getting him at third on FanDuel is a boon. Premium prospects, let me pull up his numbers real quick. Premium hitting prospect that they are relying on to turn into something. 23 years old in 264 plate appearances in AAA this season, 16 home runs, a 307 ISO. That was 307, not 207. 307, a 141 WRC plus. Last season in 427 plate appearances in AAA, 24 home runs, a 238 ISO, a 129 WRC plus. Was a good hitter last year too. 280, 358, 519. Not a sellout for power type guy. This year, also a good hitter. 307, 386, 614 at AAA. So a kid that they really expect to hit at the major league level. Cheap price, hitting second against the lefty. I like the spot. Could certainly go in there and strike out 3 times against Rodon. Give Rodon a little bit of upside here. But I think as a player who might go a little bit under the radar in this lineup, and there's a couple of those type guys tonight, I think he works well with Nimmo, with Lindor, with Alonso. Lindor and Alonso, obviously stars, underpriced a little bit. Pete got us 2 from the top of the home run board yesterday. Don't know if Jordan Alvarez is in the lineup. Pete's either number 1 or number 2, depending on whether Jordan plays today. But I like the opportunity for him to go deep again tonight in Yankee Stadium. 4,900 still very, very cheap on DraftKings. 3,500 is discounted on FanDuel. He's a $4,000 player over there. 3,400 is cheap for Lindor, especially when he's mostly doing what he's supposed to do. He's just not hitting for much average, getting on base at a lower clip this year. The run creation is down a little, but the counting stats for DFS are right in line. 19 home runs, 17 stolen bases. So he finishes out around, 30 home runs and 25, 28 stolen bases. That sounds a lot like Francisco Lindor to me. So I'm happy to go to him. Tommy Pham's having a great season. Jeff McNeil's a slap hitter. Mark Canha, Francisco Alvarez, very playable part Slate in the lineup. Alvarez, tremendous power potential at the plate. Righty, going up against a Yankee. Righty in Yankee Stadium, going up against the lefty. Not drawing to the correct side of the stadium, but he's got enough power to hit it out of any part of the ballpark. So if Rodon makes a mistake against Alvarez, it's going to travel. Khan's more a put the ball in play, but he's got a little bit of pop, a little bit of speed, veteran guy. And then Danny Mendick kind of rounds it out as a mix-in, light-hitting defense type player. So this was definite shares of Carlos Rodon, particularly at the very low FanDuel price. Low confidence in him right now, just in current form, but high confidence in if he finds his form, he's an ace. So I think we're getting a discounted ace is still the approach with Rodon. Quintana on the other side, value darts for sure. I think there's upside for value darts there. Low confidence darts, but you don't have to succeed all that many times at these prices for that to pay off. 5,700 on DK too. That's a pretty premium SP2 price over there. And then shares of both sides with the Mets preferred over the Yankees, but definite interest in the Yanks at value pricing going up against a somewhat limited lefty. I think there's upside for the Yanks. Only 4 games to go. It's only 4:25. It's weird. Let me pop into the chat. Chuck's in the chat. Chuck says, been loving these contrarian slates with great hitters and pitchers that are too low owned. Me too, Chuck. That's the name of the game for DFS, buddy. That's what we want to get to. Just great opportunities at low ownership. That is a quick way to get to the top of standings. Aloysius, what's going on? Good afternoon to you too, bud. Fanatics in the chat. I think this is a good game stack. Both pitchers have low strikeout rates. I assume that's not the one that we just flipped to with Spencer Strider on the mound. Fanatic, if you were referring to the Yankees game, yes and no. Quintana is a lower strikeout rate guy. Particularly last year was 20.2, and this year you got to keep the sample size in mind. So struggling form of Rodon, 16.9%. That's a low strikeout rate over 14 2/3, but he's a very, very high strikeout rate guy when he's healthy and when he's on form. 34%, 33.4%. I think he's over 30% for his career, but he's at or around 30%, let's say, for his career. I'm not going to go look it up, but Rodon's a very high strikeout rate guy when going right. I do still like that spot, though, for a game stack. I think that's plays well in the conditions, plays well in Yankee Stadium. There's power upside on both sides of that. So if you want a game stack, there's no reason not to use that game as a game stack. Braves Red Sox. Brian Bayo coming back from the DR after the birth of his child. Congratulations to him. Coming back into a lousy situation. Does not project well here. That is a pretty ugly number for Brian Bayo at 9,100, 9,200. Good pitcher, pitching fairly well. 3.60 ERA, a 4.01 xFIP. Only 20.5% strikeouts. Allows a little bit of premium contact, but does it on a pretty good launch angle. Keeps the ball down pretty effectively over his 90 innings. It'll be interesting to watch him get thrown into this Braves buzzsaw. I just don't want to tangle with the Braves. My model doesn't want to tangle with the Braves. I'm not going to force Brian Bayo at a high price through here. If he was $1,000 cheaper on either side, I would probably be advocating to use a little bit of him. But, woof, that's a rough spot there. Who never had a season over 30%? Carlos Rodon? I don't know where you're looking, Fanatic. Chuck says I tried to eat some croquettes. Chuck, like I said yesterday, buddy, the beauty part about baseball is that I don't think either one of us was wrong or either one of us was right. Oh, yeah, Quintana never had a season over 30%, but he did have that high 20s 2 years ago. Small sample, but high 20s. I'm going back and forth between like 3 different conversations in the chat right now. But yeah, Fanatic, that was... No. I was talking about Rodon when I was referring to the super high strikeout rates. Got to watch where I'm clicking on the screen sometimes as I'm like going through like this. But yeah, just to reiterate, it was Carlos Rodon on the Yankees side that has several excellent seasons of being a premium, super high-end strikeout pitcher. And then 2 years ago, Quintana did have, in 63 innings, 10 starts, had a 28.6, but that came with an 11.8% walk, 6.43 ERA, a much better 3.75 xFIP, but a lot of home runs, a lot of barrels. So it doesn't seem like he can sustain a high strikeout rate and pitch well at the same time. Dude, no worries. That's what we're here to talk about, Fanatic. That's no worries at all. Chuck says he thought Savali would do what Cobb did, but he still got there. That was my major stand along with Abbott on FanDuel. Yeah, Abbott had another nice game. Good pitching slate overall yesterday. But yeah, Chuck, as I was saying, like that doesn't, just because Cobb went out had a good game doesn't make me right, doesn't make you wrong about that situation. That's we're here to talk about situations. We're here to go through the numbers, and you had good justification in what you said. You know, you mentioned Cobb's low strikeout rate against lefties and the fact that they had a number of lefties in the lineup. Then when we went and took a look, to me they were low end lefties that I wasn't really worried about, and it happened to work out. In another situation where you're just observing those facts, hey, a lot of lefties in the lineup, low strikeout rate against lefties, that could have worked out completely the other way if it was several high end lefties. So totally worth talking about, and did not make you wrong. Larry likes the Cubs stack today. I also like the Cubby stack today, Larry. We'll get there. All right, let's get back on track here. So Bayo is kind of a non-option to me. It's not because he was traveling or anything like that. Like, I don't worry about that stuff. It's just the way that he projects for the price against the best team in baseball. I just don't want to go there. I really don't see it. So I'm going extremely hard on the Braves. I'll definitely go pretty hard on the Red Sox lineup going up against Spencer Strider here. I think that's one of those positions that you can choose to occupy on this slate. They obviously don't project extremely well. It's Spencer Strider on the other side. I think he's a little bit more mortal this season in terms of allowing a 9.8% barrel rate, 3.36% home runs. The ERA is up a little bit to 3.78. The xFIP is perfectly fine at 2.68. And like I said, I think some of the, Strider's not quite the same this year, is just a little bit of happenstance. Like the last start out, he was pitching great, and then they left him in to pitch, I think it was the 7th, and he got dinged in that inning. So he lost a little bit of quality. That, that's one thing where sometimes the models don't know how to parse that out correctly, right? It's just in the numbers, so it's not necessarily or like inherited runs when he puts 2 guys on, but then a bullpen guy is the one that let them score. Like the model doesn't necessarily know how to parse those pieces of information, so sometimes it can degrade the the fantasy score a little bit or what the numbers look like. And if you look at Strider, 2.68 xFIP is almost an exact match for the 2.67 ERA that he had last year. It's up a little bit from a 2.30 xFIP, but we're quibbling between that difference, 2.30 to 2.68. So he's really not off form by very much. It's minor degrees, if anything. Strikeouts are up, which is absurd to say about a guy who had a 38.3% strikeout rate last year, but it's up to 39.7 for this year, striking out nearly 40% of hitters. That's bonkers. Swinging strike rate way up, 15.5 last year, 19.8 this year, 31.1% CSW up to 34.5%. Strider's a beast. He's an absolute monster on the mound, best pitcher in baseball. He's totally worth going to, and I think it's, you should have a lot of shares of Strider at 12.7 and 11.2. But he's not completely blasting through the top of projections like he normally might. There's a lot of competitive guys. There's a lot of guys right around that same projection as him. So in Fenway Park, going up against a Red Sox lineup that I want to have and that I do think is a very good lineup with a lot of talent, I think there's reason to roster Strider, but also go to Red Sox bats here, which is how I'm going to attack it. Jarren Duran, Justin Turner, Masataka Yoshida, Rafael Devers. It's a great four-man just directly off the top of this lineup. Duran getting on base at better than a 400 clip since being in the leadoff role, creating runs like crazy. Overall, 316, 368, 510, 6 homers, 21 steals. Turner having another dynamite season, 286, 358, 478, a 192 ISO, creating runs 26% better than average. Yoshida's been the best player on the team, 42% better than average for runs, 320, 382, 506, 186 ISO, 12 homers. Devers with 24 homers, a 256 ISO, 127 WRC plus. There's tons and tons of upside here. These guys, a lot of guys that limit strikeouts. Yes, it's Spencer Strider on the other side, but it's still difficult to strike out Yoshida. It's still difficult to strike out Justin Turner. They're going to see a lot of pitches. Guy like Tristan Casas late in the lineup, 14.1% walk rate. Maybe he exploits the 7.4% walks that Strider's putting up this year. There are reasons to think that the Red Sox can get to Spencer Strider here. Not in a spot where I'm going to say, go off and forgo Strider shares and roster 150 sets of Red Sox bats, but I think they're in play as a mid-range stacking option that's probably going to be fairly low owned against Strider here. So I think there's good reason to go to them. And then the Braves, it's just 1 through 9. It's the everyday version of the lineup. Going up against Bayo in Fenway Park. He's got a little bit of a limiting effect. They only ranked 4th by home run upside, but they're by far the highest implied total on the board, by far the highest projection average on the board. Nothing to dislike about the Braves today. They were at 5.69 implied runs. Only the Giants are also over 5 at 5.15, and then every other team on the board was 4.8, which was the Astros or lower. So I mean, it's a thin board. There's a ton of offense on deck in Vegas. A lot of reason to believe in the Braves, all their home run power, all their run creation ability. They're super expensive through the top end. These guys help pay for the guys up top. That bottom 4 is dynamite, like we talk about basically every day. Ozuna, Rosario, Arcia, and Harris could hit much, much higher in the lineup. They would be the top 4 hitters for a lot of teams. So there's plenty of opportunity to just mix and match these 4 guys or 2 of these 4 guys with any of these guys. Put it together any way that you can afford it. Use some of the value pitching to pay for some of the expensive bats. It's not easy with 4 guys in the 6,000s and not even the low 6,000s when we're talking about Acuna coming in at a pitcher price on the DK slate. But they're well worth it. 67-47. Whew, that's up there. 23 home runs, 48 stolen bases, 61 WRC% better than average creating runs. Albies is a star at second base. Riley's a star at third. Olson's a star at first. Murphy's a star catcher. These guys are very, very good. I'll stop short of calling them stars just because I don't want to say it about everybody in the lineup, but it's 5 stars and 4 very good players. Mix and match them as much as you want in any combination. They'll probably be a little bit popular, but not crazy so, I think. I think there's other spots people are going to go to for better values, and they're just difficult to build with. So this one was definite yes on Strider, but he's expensive and projects like a lot of the other guys do. So I think it's a day where you can spread out some of those shares. Take some of those shares, dedicate them to Red Sox. Take some of those shares, dedicate them to some of the other pitchers. Maybe we undercut the field a little bit on Strider. I'm not sure where he comes in ownership-wise, but he's probably going to be by far the highest-owned player of the day, or pitcher of the day. So maybe we undercut his ownership a little bit, just looking for some of that spread. I definitely want to have a lot of them, but I also want to attack him with Red Sox bats. Bats all day on the Braves side. Definite interest in the Red Sox is like a mid-priority position to take up on this slate. Just referred to this one a minute ago. Let's see if we got lineups. Looks like we've got the White Sox lineup. I like the spot for the Cubbies. I think the White Sox are viable against Marcus Stroman, but it's just not a great spot. I don't love throwing bats at Stroman because he's typically pretty good at keeping the ball in the yard, keeping it on the ground, keeping it in the yard, limiting offensive upside, and he's pitching really well this season in particular. So I don't know how much White Sox I get to here. It's probably more a day where I get to some shares of both pitchers and then some shares of the Cubbies and minor shares of the White Sox. They'll trickle in around the edges for sure. They're good enough for that. There's a lot of players that I do like in that lineup. So they'll be in my portfolio of lineups, but they won't be a major priority, I don't think. The pitching matchup, Lance Lynn, very cheap on DK at 7,700 given his ceiling for strikeouts. 27.3% strikeout rate. Throw out everything else this year. Look at the 27.3% strikeout rate and the 14% swinging strike rate. That on its own is enough to warrant shares of Lance Lynn at 7,700. He's a major piece of the trade block today, or going up to the trade deadline. I expect fully that he'll be on a different team to finish out the year. I don't think that has a limiting effect on him today. That's something that could go in any number of directions. They could say, all right, 5 innings and you're out of there. We want to protect you just in case. Older guy, injury issues back and forth. Maybe there's a little bit of concern there, but you could also argue that, hey, he hasn't been great this year. Maybe they try and showcase him a little bit if he's pitching well and give him a long leash. He's also a guy who bulldogs his way through a lot of innings typically. He's known for depth. So I think we just kind of consider it a wash either way with possibility, and there's no way to quantify it anyway. So I'm just going to take Lynn as how he looks, as like a mid-range option that projects lower than that top-end group. I'm going to have him on the board. I'm going to have him in my portfolio of lineups, but he'll be a lower priority than a lot of the other guys. I do love the strikeout ceiling, but I'm really concerned about the barrel rate that he's allowing, 11.1% barrels, 5.94% home runs, a 6.18 ERA, but a much better 3.95 xFIP. Strikeouts are great, but the walks are way up this year. Right? His walks went from 3.7% last year to 8.4% this year. It was 7% 2 years ago, so it's not a total outlier, but that's a big jump in walks. Strikeouts went up as well, but the walks are a concern. The premium contact is basically doubled. So those are concerns. The barrels are basically doubled here. And there's a lot of guys on the Cubbies that can hit one out of the ballpark. There's a lot of guys that can capitalize on the increased walk rate. They can wait out some of his stuff. A lot of good walk rates on the Cubs in this projected lineup. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 guys out of the 9 hitters in the projected lineup with better than a 10% walk rate. We've got an average on base percentage in that projected lineup of 337. If we take out the Tucker Barnhart 289, it becomes 343. We can also limit it by dropping Miles Mastrobuoni's 303, and then it becomes a 349 for the key playable hitters. Just a good lineup. A lot of ways that this team can beat you with sequencing, with a little bit of power, a little bit of speed. I like getting to the Cubs, and I think they've got underappreciated parts. Like Dansby Swanson is very cheap at 4,100, 3,000. He's got 12 home runs on the season, had a good game yesterday, is up to a 119 WRC plus, but still not totally on track. Last year, 25 home runs, 18 stolen bases. Year before, 27 home runs and 9 stolen bases. He's a better power hitter than he's been so far this season. So I like Swanson lurking late in the lineup. Chris Morrell lurking late in the lineup. Mastrobuoni and Barnhart, if they're in the lineup, are mix and match guys. And then this part is more obvious. Ian Happ for cheap on base. That correlates really well with Cody Bellinger. Seiya Suzuki and Cody Bellinger and Dansby Swanson for a little bit of power upside. A lot of on-base skills between those guys. A lot of run creation ability between those guys. Everybody's cheap. Some multi-position eligibility. Up at the top of the lineup, Nico Horner is my preferred option between these two guys, between Tauchman and Horner. I like Horner even though he's kind of overpriced for what he does and who he is. 277, 330, 395, a 99 WRC plus. Somehow cost 4,700, 3,500 second base shortstop. That's a little bit pricey, but I'm willing to pay it because a lot of these other hitters are cheap, so it's easy enough to build into the lineup anyway. Tauchman, I think, is a flawed option in the leadoff spot. 3,400, 3,000, getting on base at a 354 clip, a 104 WRC plus. The numbers this year are fine over 199 plate appearances, but overall he's a quad A player. This is not a guy who's a major league talent. It's not a guy who's a premium option. Let me look. He's 32 years old. He's had one other season in the majors where he made more than 200 plate appearances. He's about to go over that mark today. That was in 2019. He hit 13 home runs that year and 296 opportunities with the Yanks. He hasn't come close to 200 and change plate appearances since then. Or in years before that. He's 32. It's not like he's suddenly a good player, and he gets crazy popularity. He was one of the high projected popularity guys. I don't remember checking where he ended up coming in, but just looking at where he is today, yeah, if we're going by a number from a non-stochastic site, he's in the high 20s from Mike Tauchman. It's a lineup I want to get to, but if I have to forgo a part of it and just say like, all right, yeah, he's their leadoff hitter. Yeah, he provides correlated scoring with some of these guys. But if I undercut the field on one of the Cubs, it's not going to be Cody Bellinger. It's not going to be Dansby Swanson. It's not going to be Seiya Suzuki. It's probably going to be Mike Tauchman. So reason to play him for sure, but maybe not at, pressing 30% ownership. Maybe we don't get to that kind of a level. I like the Cubs a lot. I like the spot for the Cubs a lot. I like Lance Lynn a bit as well. But I just think that ownership on Tauchman is out of line. White Sox side of things going up against Stroman. Stroman projects in that group of pitchers up at the top of the board. Looks really, really good here. 9,400, 9,600. Seems worth paying for. 122 and a third innings, 21.1% strikeout rate this year. He walks too many at 9.2%, but it doesn't really cost him. He's very good at keeping the ball down. Like I said, 2.9 degree average launch angle this year, 4.4% barrels, only 1.41% home runs. Last year, 6.6% barrels, 7 degrees average launch, 2.81% home runs. Year before, 6.3 degrees, 6.5% barrels, 2.3% home runs. Just a good pitcher, pitching effectively. Not a premium strikeout guy. There are some strikeouts for sure in this White Sox lineup, so they might push a little bit of additional upside in his direction. But I just like him for clean innings. I think he's one of the better options on deck for clean innings today. 122 and a third in 21 starts. Had him ranked 17th in innings pitched. So good depth. He leads the league in quality starts as well with 15, or he's tied for the league lead, I think. So a lot of quality starts on deck. Just pitches deep into games, chases bonuses. I have no issues going to Marcus Stroman for these prices. If I'm going to the White Sox, Benintendi and Timmy can definitely be in my lineups despite their underperformances. I actually made Timmy the White Sox home run pick of the day despite this 1.66. Just give him a little shot in the arm. Hope to get him going. I know he reads. I know Timmy's a fan. 0 home runs on the board for Tim this year. 10 stolen bases, but up to a 56 WRC+. plus. Day by day, that's creeping up. Benintendi's been the better of the two, but they're both underperforming. Lubob, Eloy Jimenez, Jean Moncada, Andrew Vaughn, Jake Berger, even Oscar Colas. A lot of power through this part of the lineup. But again, you're going up against a guy who doesn't typically get burnt for home runs. So it's difficult to envision them hitting a bunch of home runs. It's difficult to really envision them scoring a ton against Stroman here. So I think the White Sox fairly low priority. But if I do go to them, Robert's in most of my White Sox builds. Eloy Jimenez is in most of them. And then Moncada, Vaughn, and Berger get like the next most ownership as like mix and match those three guys through a variety of stacks along with the two outfielders. And then these guys are bolt-on parts. Colas does have premium power upside as a rookie for the dead minimum on DK, 2,200 on FanDuel. Only one home run in the show so far in 131 plate appearances, but does have the idea of good left-handed power. If he's in the lineup, he can be in yours, and he is. He's hitting 8th. So I think you can build him in, but kind of a low-end option, particularly when we're homer hunting against a guy who doesn't give them up. So the White Sox are a low priority. If I'm ranking it, it's Stroman, Cubs bats, Lynn, White Sox. I'll have decent shares of the first three things and then limited shares of the White Sox. 2 games to go. Rangers and the Astros. We've got the Astros lineup. So the Astros do have both Jose Altuve and Jordan Alvarez coming back to the lineup. Major boon to the Astros upside here. I had them in the projected version of the lineup, so everything on the site was including them. So we've got, I think this was the exact version that we had in the projected form. No, Corey Julks in the lineup instead of Jainer Diaz from the projected form. But still, the Astros look very, very good here. They're leading the day in the home run model just primarily because of Andrew Heaney's home run issues. But you can see Heaney does project fairly well here. 6,700, 7,900, he's in that group of pitchers. As uncomfortable as it might be going up against the better version of the Astros, he does still have significant strikeout upside on any given slate. 24% this year, 35.5% last year in a smaller sample of 72 and 2/3, 26.9% the year before. I think the reality is somewhere between 2021 and 2023, call it 25% or so. But a 1-in-4 strikeout rate is typically worth chasing. The issue is Heaney's home run problems. 4.33% this year on 10.8% barrels, 90.7 miles an hour of exit velo. Last year, 4.52. Year before, 5.20%. Barrel issues every year, hard hit issues every year. That was, or is, and still can be, something that you say, all right, I take the bad with the good. I take his ugly home run rate because he's so good with the strikeout rate. In this spot, it's a little bit more difficult, because the Astros are the second best team in baseball against lefties with a 17% strikeout rate. So the upside for K's is a little bit dug into by their ability to avoid strikeouts. So out of all the pitchers in that top pool, I trust the spot for Heaney the least because of that. Maybe it's a little bit deceptive what the strikeout numbers are, what the reality of the strikeout numbers is. But I was already trusting him the least anyway because of his power problems, and all of that is already baked into these prices. The low strikeout upside against the Astros, his issues this year with the home runs, his issues this year with earned runs, to be honest, with allowing too many guys on base, with not striking out as many guys as he has in years past. All of that is accounted for in a $6,700 price tag, a $7,900 price tag. So I do think that Andrew Heaney's on the board, as uncomfortable as it might be. I greatly prefer Framber Valdez, even though they project out very similarly in the model, separated by less than 2 points and separated by many thousands of dollars of salary. Framber's the better pitcher. There's no arguing that. 26.9% strikeout rate, 6.1% walks, a 2.94 ERA, a 2.99 xFIP. I always talk about his home run his potential for limiting home run power. 1.82% home runs this year on 3.8% degrees launch. That's way up from last year's negative 3.6 and the year before's negative 5.5. But he's still spectacular keeping the ball in the yard, keeping the ball on the ground. He's finding his strikeouts this year at 26.9%, 11.8% swinging strikes. I really like the opportunity for Framber Valdez. It's a tough matchup against the Rangers, but they're going to be without Corey Seager again. So you probably get this version of the lineup that moves Ezekiel Duran to that second spot, which I like a lot. You get Semien up at the top, Josh Young, Adolis Garcia, Nathaniel Lowe, Jonah Heim, and Mitch Garver through the middle. There's plenty of potential, plenty of home run power in that lineup on a normal day. But going up against Framber really takes the home run upside, not off the table, but it moves it off to the side and it puts it like on the edge of the table. Really limited home run potential here for the Rangers today. So I think you can go to Rangers stacks. I think it'll be a fairly contrarian position. But I prefer going to the Red Sox in Fenway Park against Strider than I do taking shots at Framber, just given what those guys do. Strider might go out there and strike out 12 and just not let them touch the ball, where Framber's more likely to let them make contact with the ball. But if they do, in a world where, let's say, they each give up 10 batted ball events tonight, it's more likely that Strider's going to give up a home run than it is that Framber's going to give up a home run. It's more likely that Strider gives up a few runs and a couple big fantasy performances in the event that they are giving up batted ball events. So we're getting several steps down the possibility chain here, but that's the reason that I prefer the Red Sox bats over the Rangers bats in this spot. I will have some Rangers, but it'll be limited. It'll be around shares of Semien and Ezekiel Duran, Josh Young and Adolis Garcia, and Nathaniel Lowe primarily, and then mix and match through these guys. I like Leo Taveras a lot at the bottom of the lineup. He's an effective wraparound play. He's been really good this season. Duran arguably should hit ahead of Semien. Just makes more sense in my mind to put Semien's pop. Not that Duran lacks power, but I just think it makes a little bit more sense while Seager's out to have Semien hitting second here. But in either order, those guys are great. And I really like Duran's triple position eligibility on the FanDuel slate. Nathaniel Lowe helps you pay for the other guys. He's still very cheap. And he's kind of come around. 11 home runs now. 130 WRC plus, 284, 376, 447. Not that he was bad at any point, but he was underperforming a little bit. And he's kind of caught back up to what our expectations for him were while staying cheap. So I think the Rangers are playable, but not great. Astros, definitely a strong spot. Tons and tons of home run upside. Altuve off the top. Altuve is a star at second base. He's only made 143 plate appearances, 6 home runs, 5 stolen bases, creating runs 38% better than average. Love that spot. Something's clicking in the Discord. Let's see what's going on here. I'm just looking at the Monster Energy drink and the little cannabis jar there, and they dropped in the picture in the Discord. Love seeing those drop in. All right, so we were talking about the Astros. So Jose Altuve off the top of the lineup, only 143 plate appearances, but has been great and was looking a lot like Jose Altuve before he got hurt again. Pena in the second spot, really underperforming this year. 232, 288, 368, only a 136 ISO and an 81 WRC plus. The counting stats look a lot like last year. We took a look at this fairly recently. The 10 home runs, the 9 stolen bases kind of align with 22 and 11 from last year. But now the triple slash is way down. The run creation's way down. Just not having a good year at the plate. Might not be all that great. Kyle Tucker, obviously a star, 6,000, 4,000. You're paying for him, but star, major power upside. By the way, Tucker and Alvarez, do not sweat the lefty-lefty with those two hitters. Neither one of those guys loses very much of anything against lefties. So happy to go to them. If the field goes a little bit under on both of those guys, that's to our advantage. Do not worry about lefty-lefty with either of those hitters. Alex Bregman, they fixed his price. We were complaining about it being $6,000 yesterday. It's $5,300 today. That makes a lot more sense to me. 53, 33 at third base, 16 homers, plenty of power upside for Bregman. Jordan, all-world player, 18.8% barrel, 55.7% hard hits, had 17 home runs in 242 plate appearances before the injury. One of the better run creators in baseball, one of the best power hitters in baseball. Happy to pay $55.41 for him. Cheap on DK for his talent. Abreu's been bad this season, but he's cheap, and he's up to a 79 WRC plus. Has not stopped that little roll he's been on. It's not been great. He hasn't been an outrageous performer, but he's been much, much better over the last month and change than he was the first couple months of the season. Chas McCormick's basically been a star caliber player, over 245 opportunities this year, 282, 369, 531 for a player that we liked a lot coming into the season, have liked in seasons past. It's nice to see him performing and getting basically an everyday shot now. It's not every day, but it's most days in this lineup now. 49% better than average creating runs, 13 homers, 11 steals. Still only cost $4,100 on DK. He's up to 37 on FanDuel, which makes a lot of sense. 41 on DK is a bargain for that player. Corey Jokes, Martin Maldonado, mix and match guys. So, Fromber, strong yes. Astros bats, pretty strong yes. Andrew Heaney darts for value, definitely on the board, but with a lot of danger. Rangers bats against Fromber, kind of low end. Don't love it. We'll have some, but don't love it. Lower priority by a lot than they normally are. Lower priority overall on the board. Last game, and it's only 4:54. Well, at least we're going to go over an hour for 5 games. Would have been tragic if we had finished under an hour. My gosh, I don't know what I would have done. Larry C says it's not May, it's the end of July. That kind of sucks, huh? Summer flew by. Once we get to Shark Week, I know the summer's starting to end. You typically have Shark Week, and then you start seeing those Country Time lemonade commercials where it's like, the end of summer means back to school and earlier sunsets and hanging out with your grandpa, eating Werther's Originals and drinking Country Time lemonade. Those commercials are always a cue for the end of summer for me. Fanatic says you would have told us that story. I could have. It's a good story. It's my buddy Dan wrote it up as he was a journalist and a journalism major in college, and he wrote it up as like a big feature, and it's like 6 pages long or something like that. Really, really funny doc. It's a ridiculous, silly story, but a lot of laughs throughout it. And it was me, him, and my buddy Brian Tortorette, who we went and picked up at UVA on the way down. UVA. He didn't go to UVA. He went to James Madison. We went in Virginia. On the way, we went and picked him up at JMU, and he joined us for the trip. We had a blast. In the first 3 iterations of the article, it was the true version where it's all 3 of us, and then gradually, as Dan edited the article or the piece that he wrote about it, he gradually edited Tortorette out of the story. So if you read that version of the story, it's just two of us. Made it for a tighter story, but kind of lost a little flavor with no Totorette there. The short version of the story, I'll get into it real quick. Short version of the story. When I was in later high school years and in college, I worked at a pizza joint in Middletown, New Jersey, called Serrano's Pizza. If you ever see any of my fantasy teams in public leagues, they're called Serrano's Mobsters, because that pizza joint, in another ridiculously long story, turned out to be run by a bunch of guys who were affiliated with the mob. They weren't like hardcore, like go out and whack some guy type mobsters, but they were involved in, if anybody remembers from the late 90s, that Wall Street scam that a bunch of Italian-American folks went away to real estate school, as my guys put it, back in the late 90s for a Wall Street thing. They were involved in that. And they went away to real estate school, and then the pizza place closed. Long story short, or getting longer, while working at that pizza place for a couple of summers, like a full year, and then a couple of summers back from college, we would always hang out and smoke, and we'd go out to the bar and then come back to the pizza joint at like 2 a.m., open it back up, fire up the ovens, make a couple drunk pizzas, smoke a bunch of pot, hang out all night. It was a blast. We became pretty close friends with the kids that worked in the back. These couple of guys from Central America, believe they were Mexican, but I don't want to sound like I'm stereotyping. I believe they were from actual Mexico. Juan was one of them, and Armando was the other one. Juan was a more upstanding citizen. Armando was more of a fuck up, drunk all the time, showing up infrequently, but obviously he was our favorite, right? He was the more fun one. He was a little bit silly. We would go over and hang out at their house, and my being able to speak Spanish and actually communicate was a big help at that point. But legitimately, we're hanging out with these guys and straight up friends with these guys. So after the pizza place closed, we lost touch with them. A couple years went by. Heard from Juan that, hey, did you hear? He called my house one day. Hey, did you hear Armando died? And I said, what? Are you kidding? He said, yeah, he moved to North Carolina, and I just heard through the grapevine that he died. What? Oh, my God, that sucks. Made me really sad. And then later on that night, or maybe the next day, Juan called back and said, hey, good news. I don't know for sure that Armando's dead. He might be alive. I'm trying to find out. He had lost touch with Armando, was getting like third-hand information, couldn't figure out whether Armando was alive or dead. So me being inclined to go on ridiculous road trips with my friends, and having a photograph of Armando, I said, you guys want to go to Durham, North Carolina and see if we can find him? We didn't have an address. We didn't have anything other than the photo. And the photo was taken at a rest stop on the the Garden State Parkway in New Jersey, because that's where we used to meet our weed guy. He would come there. He gave us a big discount. He would come over from over by Rutgers, give us a big discount on weed if we came to meet him over there. So Juan and Armando would come along for the ride all the time, while we were killing time, all baked in the rest stop, waiting for this guy to show up. We jumped into the photo booth, and they had those little digital backgrounds that you could put in there. So the picture that we had of Armando was actually a picture of him and Juan with their arms around one another, with the fake digital background of a bunch of cherubs and the caption that said "Perfect Angels" up at the top of it. Pretty ridiculous thing to go and try and find somebody with in a fairly large city of Durham, North Carolina. Through many misadventures over the course of a day or so, more than 24 hours, but less than 36 hours, we eventually found Armando. We went to not many places. We kind of drove around aimlessly, drove through some of the more likely than not parts of the city that he might be living in, spoke to a few people, but not with any real, maximum effort, just kind of kicking around, not really sure what the hell we were going to do to find this guy. We go out, we go check into a motel, shitty motel across from a strip mall. We go across the street to the strip mall to buy some booze, to buy some food from the supermarket for dinner that day. I think we just were looking for like rotisserie chicken or whatever. In that supermarket, we start talking to a cop, and we tell him our story. We're like, yeah, we're looking for this guy. And he's totally mind blown, this southern cop. Let me get this straight. You boys come down here from New Jersey looking for a Mexican guy, and you just think you're going to find him here in Durham. You know how many of them we got creeping around here? There's a southern guy. Little how many of them, not overtly bad, but not the most comfortable conversation in the world. So he goes through that whole spiel. tells us it's totally hopeless, tells us we're stupid, tells us to go back to New Jersey and to give up. As he's departing, as he's about to turn around on his heel and walk away, he turns back and he goes, you know, the one thing I would do if I was looking for a Mexican fella, I would go to that Latino dance club on over there at the end of the parking lot in this supermarket, and I would just go check in there real quick, because a lot of them, they like to go to that place. So I said, really? The place right over here in the parking lot, you're now recommending we go check there? Yeah, go on, check over there. So we go up, and sure enough, there is a gigantic line of, it's a Latin cultural event, right? Music's jamming out the door. There's all kinds of stuff going on. Fun scene outside, waiting online to get into the club. We wait online. We get up to the front of the club. The bouncer looks us up and down, stares us directly in the eyes, and goes, y'all know this is a Latino dance club, don't you? And we're like, oh, yeah, no, it's okay. We're looking for a Latino guy, a specific Latino guy. And with that, he was like, all right, you can go on in. Still had his mind blown that we were going into that place. I was walking around like, yeah, this is great. This place looks awesome. Let's have a good time. Let's hang out here for a bit. So we go up, and we're still just like, there's no way in hell we're going to find this dude. Walk into the place, no joke, had the light up disco floor from Saturday Night Fever. You know that, like, if anybody's ever seen that disco movie, straight up had that disco floor in that place. Walk up, we buy some Coronas at the bar because I think that's all they were selling beer-wise. Standing around, talking to one another, like, looking around like, don't really know what to do, how we're going to find. I said, fuck it. I got to at least ask one group of people if they ever know Armando. So I say, those guys over there, those look like they'd be friends with him. I walk across the dance floor. I take the picture out of my pocket. I don't know why I went like this. I wasn't like wearing a blazer or anything at the time. Take the picture out of my pants pocket. Walk up to them in my best broken Spanish. ¿Conoce es un amigo de mío, es mi amigo y es posible que es muerto, pero no sé, y no sé dónde está, no sé dónde vive. I'm telling him, you know, I don't know where he is. I think he might be dead. Blah, blah, blah. The guy I'm talking to goes, taps his friend on the shoulder and goes, and points at the picture. They knew him. The first people I went up to in that Latino dance club knew him. Not only did they know him, they hung out with us for the rest of the night, bought us a couple rounds of drinks. We parted as friends after a couple of hours. They promised us that they would bring him to our hotel the next morning. And they did. Totally random. Never saw him again. Never saw us again. They were just like, hey, we'll bring him over to your hotel so he can hang out with you guys. He hung out with us for the entire day. He was alive and well. He hung out with us for the entire day. We took him over to Raleigh to see the Duke versus North Carolina football game because it was the only thing we could really think of to do. We smoked, we partied, we celebrated that he was alive, and that was the last time I ever saw Armando. But we did find him. That is the story, gentlemen. It's a lot longer. There are a lot more ins and outs, but that's the crux of the story. Those were the highlights. And now that we're well past 5 o'clock, we can talk about the last game on deck. I hopefully did not offend anybody with my telling of that story. Hopefully everybody knows that I am part Cuban and certainly not trying to judge anybody by saying Latino dance club or anything like that. I was very at home there. These are legitimate friends of mine, but it's the internet and things can get weird when you're telling a story and it gets taken out of context. So just wanted to clarify that. King of all trades says, I'm born and raised here in Durham. I already know you were talking about. Things are very separated and specific here. So minus the southern accent, that is spot on. Yeah, my southern accent was probably offensive to southern folks. That's for sure. Fanatic says, I'm definitely offended. Chuck says this is a movie better than I've seen anything in a while. Yeah, we've always talked about writing it into a movie. So Obi-Wan says it sounds like Harold and Kumar. Very much so. We've got a lot of those. That wasn't even the only story that I've got about finding some random person and going on a big road trip adventure and finding some person. Some other day, somebody remind me to tell you the Bob Harkins story. All right, so this one, last game on deck. Alex Wood as the bulk reliever for the Giants. I think he's in play. You're only going to get an inning or so out of Walker, the kid who's going to open the game, and then they're going to Wood. 6,800 for an okay pitcher. 19.5% strikeout rate, 4.99 ERA, a 5.41 xFIP, and an 11.5% walk rate. It hasn't been pretty for Alex Wood so far this year. But last year, 23.6% strikeouts and 130 and 2/3. That'll play against the Athletics. Year before, 26% and 138 and 2/3. That'll play against the Athletics. So I think there's a little bit of upside here. I don't love that he's not starting the game, so you don't get the opportunity for the quality start, but we've seen this role succeed on both sites this year. So I think we can go to some shares of Alex Wood. The Athletics are second worst in baseball by WRC plus collectively against left-handed pitching this year. They're just bad. They're a bad baseball team that we like to target quite a bit. They have a 79 WRC plus collectively, ranks them 29th against lefties. Their strikeout rate in the split is 25%. They've got a 124 ISO against lefties. It's just a good spot. So I think a few darts at worst are definitely worth throwing. DK, it's a little bit easier because you don't worry about the quality start and lack thereof. So 6,000 on DK, totally worth doing. Don't get crazy with it, but obviously he projects out fairly well, and it's a great matchup. Hogan Harris on the other side, I don't really see any need to go to. He does project playably. Like when everybody else is 32 to 34 and he's sitting at 24 for these prices, like that's okay. He hasn't been terrible in 53 innings, 5 starts, some bulk relief appearances. 6.11 ERA is not good. 5.10 xFIP is not good. 9.6% walks is not good. But he's limited home runs to 2.6. 6.9% barrels. Some of that is happenstance in a small sample. It's not the most predictive thing in the world by any means. Striking out 1 in 5. I believe that the projections may be okay or not far off or not, necessarily incorrect. He was a high-end strikeout pitcher in the minors, but was pitching probably at an age that was a little bit advanced for the level at which he was pitching. He was 25 working from high A to triple A last year. So he had like 32, 30, 28% strikeout rates when he went to high A, double A, triple A, but nothing I really believe in, because when you're 25 and pitching at high A, that tells you the story right there of what you need to know. So I don't think I'm going to Hogan Harris shares here. Kind of intrigued by the Giants. Second highest implied run total on the board. A lot of guys who hit home runs off of lefties or hit very well against lefties. Austin Slater, Wilmer Flores, J.D. Davis, 3 premium righties at the top of the lineup, or maybe mixing and matching through the lineup. The Giants went with Lamont Wade Jr. yesterday, despite a lefty on the mound, so they might do that again today. He'd be definitely in play for me. I prefer Slater in the leadoff role just because he's a little bit better against lefties than Wade is. But either way, I'm happy to go to either one of those guys. Slater will probably be in the lineup later in the lineup if he doesn't hit leadoff here and Wade does. So either way, I think Slater's in play. Flores, 13 home runs on the year at 242 ISO, creating runs 39% better than average in 245 plate appearances. Offers triple position eligibility for 3,100 on the FanDuel slate. First base only, that kind of sucks on DK, but totally playable in that spot. And you don't have to decide between him and Davis because Davis is a third baseman only, 4,300, 3,000. 12 home runs on the season for him, creating runs 11% better than average. Any of the lefties are playable against this lefty, whether that's Yastrzemski, Conforto, Jock Peterson, who got the start yesterday, is a bit of a surprise. Any one of those guys is fine. Pat Bailey's fine given his acumen at the plate that he's displayed hitting from both sides so far. Cheap catcher bat. Luis Matos, more of a hit tool and speed kind of a guy. Casey Schmidt and Brett Wisely, more like mix-in type guys down the bottom of the lineup. Joker's getting excited because he knows I'm about to refer to Marco Luciano. Marco Luciano. I know. I didn't forget him. Don't worry. I was leaving him for the last guy to talk about, Joker. Go lie down, pal. Last game. Go lie down. So Luciano, 8.3 in the home run model, leading the team today for the Giants. 2,500 on the FanDuel slate. Not available at last check on DK. He was just called up, just added to the board today, late in the day on FanDuel. Love the spot. Think he maybe goes under the radar for 2,500 on the FanDuel slate. I really like the opportunity to put him at shortstop. Premium power bat. He's only 21. He had 11 home runs and 6 steals in 242 plate appearances in AA, and another 2 in his 27 plate appearances at AAA so far this year. Major power upside. He's a kid that has graded out to like a 70 raw power grade in traditional scouting. Just really significant power bat. So really like the opportunity. Might be totally overmatched at the major league level. He's only 21. This is his first day in the show. But I like the spot going up against this pitcher. It's not like he's facing a major league caliber pitcher. So this is essentially a AAA plate appearance for a kid who is raking already in the minors. So I really like the opportunity for Luciano down there. 1 through 7 for the Giants enthusiastically. I'll be getting to a fair amount of Giants. They're all very cheap too, so they're easy to build with. Athletics bats, kind of a low priority, not really necessary on this slate. I think Wood is good enough to pitch through them. They're not good against lefties. If you want to go there, probably focusing like Zach Geloff, maybe some Brent Rooker, maybe some Ramon Laureano if he's back in the lineup. It's not great, though. This version of the lineup doesn't have any other call-ups. Well, it's got Geloff in it, but it doesn't have the lefties. It doesn't have Soderstrom or the other kid in it. You might see Soderstrom. I don't know that they're going to fully just protect him against lefties all the time. You want him to get full experience now that you called him up. But Aledmys Diaz, J.J. Bleday, Shea Langoliers, Nick Allen, a lot of flawed hitters through this lineup at the bottom. Priorities are Geloff, maybe some Jordan Diaz, maybe some Brent Rooker. Yeah, Laureano's kind of a tough ask. 5 home runs, 8 steals, minor output for counting stats over time. 212, 273, 360 though. 79 WRC plus and 220 opportunities. Don't love it. Really low priority stack for me, for the A's. So this one was, yes to some Alex Wood darts, but not at the top. If I'm doing it in order, it's Giants bats like way up here. Some Alex Wood darts like way down here. And then really no interest in Hogan Harris and very limited interest in the Athletics. What else is going on? Luciano is like their top prospect. Yeah, if we're not counting Kyle Harrison, my guy, the pitcher. Kyle's my guy. He's on the Dynasty squad. Got him for his whole career if things go well. If they don't, I cut bait. But I really like him as a pitching prospect. Kid looks really good. Which one's one of the worst weather spots, Chuck? This one? Out in San Fran? Just because the whole summer night in San Francisco is one of the coldest nights I ever spent. What's the... Ooh, yeah, 59-degree prediction out there. That's pretty cool. That supports the idea of Wood, honestly. There's a lot of wind blowing out, but this park tends to limit wind damage anyway. And if it's going to be that cold, that supports the idea of some upside for Wood. So yet another reason to maybe consider some pitching. A little bit of a limiting impact on the Giants' bats probably, given the conditions, but I'm not going to sweat it. I'm going to get to these hitters at these prices against that pitcher. I'm not really going to worry about it. But good note there. Let's scroll over. We'll take a look at the pitching board again. Spoiled this earlier, but to reiterate, all these guys are basically the same at the top of the board. All these guys in dark green are basically the same. The one I trust the least out of that group is Andrew Heaney, but he's also the cheapest, and anything that I don't trust about Andrew Heaney is cooked into these prices. In good years, Heaney's this guy. Heaney's in the 9s. So you're getting him at an effective price for what he is right now, flaws and all. Carlos Rodon, assuming that he comes back, anything approaching what we expect from Carlos Rodon, this is a fantastic buy at 7,600 on the FanDuel slate and very playable at 9,000 on DK. Really like the spot for Marcus Stroman. 96, 94, competitively projected. I'm going to have a lot of him just because he's cheaper than these two guys. I do think these two guys are the best options on the slate, Spencer Strider and Framber Valdez. Not really surprising anybody with that. Like I talked about when we were talking about Framber, I prefer targeting Strider with Red Sox bats than targeting Framber with Rangers bats, just given the nature of how the two pitchers impact bats. Like when hitters connect, what happens? And when hitters connect against Strider, there's a better chance that they're going to be hitting home runs, driving the ball for power, driving the ball for run creation than against Valdez. It's just that Strider strikes guys out at nearly a 40% clip, so they might not make any contact, or might be very limited contact opportunities. So it's all about how many times the Red Sox make contact. I think they do have the patience to wait him out a little bit, though, too. So good spot for bats on both sides in that one. Definite enthusiasm about Strider. I'll have tons and tons of Strider and Valdez. I'll have a good amount of Stroman. And then I'm going to mix and match my way through these guys, including Lance Lynn. I might even get to a few shares of Hogan Harris, just for the hell of it. Just because he's so cheap and he projects okay. That's like Jake Irvin play, right? That's like, it looks okay in the model. I'm not sure why. I don't really believe it, but maybe we go there. Jake Irvin didn't project well today and got totally blown up by the Rockies, by the way. Weird. Just didn't look good at all against the Rockies. The model knows sometimes. Sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes it does. So maybe some Hogan Harris, but really live with these two guys. Deal with some of these guys. You know, these three are the most likely. These guys have good shots. That's about it. 5:15. Time to get some lineups built. 7:05 start on FanDuel now, though, so no crazy rush. They changed the start time with that ran out, so not up against the 6:40, and we're out of here really early, so I might even take Joker for a little walk. See what happens. With that in mind, guys, appreciate everything. Hit the like button, hit the subscribe button. Got to hang out for a while, have some laughs, got to tell a good story. Kevin O says late night hammer. Yep, love that late night hammer, Kevin. Absolutely a good spot to dive into there. Ryan, we could take a look at the home run chart. Good note at the end there. Did pull it up quickly earlier in the show, but we'll take a quick look again. So Jordan does top the board since he's in the lineup. Alvarez tops the board. Jose Altuve not far behind him with Haney on the mound on the other side. Pete Alonso slotting in there third. Love that spot for Pete. I would not be surprised if Alonso hits another one today after hitting 2 yesterday. Just, not only does he tend to hit home runs in bunches, not that that's really a thing or really predictive, but it's just a premium power bat getting going against a struggling pitcher on the correct side of splits in Yankee Stadium. There's a lot working in Alonso's favor today. Ohtani not in play. That game got rained out. So Tucker, Giancarlo Stanton in that spot for the Yanks. Definitely some upside there going up against Quintana. When you put a lefty that pitches like Quintana does against Stanton, there's plenty of home run upside for him as well. But a lot of Mets on the board here. A lot of Mets and Astros power. So if somebody said like, hey, what two teams should I throw together just for some home run upside real quick? I'd say put the Mets and the Astros together. And like if you need a one-off to help make that work or to roster your pitcher or whatever, maybe you throw Marco Luciano in there for 25 hundo. 8.3 in the home run model in his debut, leading the Giants. Kind of works for me. Good stuff, gang. Let's pop on out of this one. Is Quintana a ground ball pitcher? 12.7 degree launch angle 2 years ago, 9.9 last year. Let's call him a ground ball-ish pitcher. I do believe he was more of a ground ball pitcher in years past. Let me see. After this, I'm definitely actually going to punch out. Probably. Yeah, like mid-40s ground ball percentage. Not great for ground balls. Tries to get, I would say tries to. 52.9% ground ball rate this year. 46.4 last year, 46.6 the year before. Last year was an effective season. Low 40s several years before that. So kind of oriented that way, but not one that I'm going to, not Framber Valdez by any means. Not even Marcus Stroman. All right, gang. With that in mind, good luck. Somebody get out there and win something. Matt Tomlinson thinking I'm going to take a chance with Rodon in my single entry and just pray. I don't mind that. It's not even like it's not really a wing and a prayer. Like I'm not going to write off Carlos Rodon based on 3 clunky starts, one of which was kind of okay in Coors Field. I think there's plenty of upside for Rodon. So especially if he goes under owned, there's definitely upside there. DK 9,000, perfectly fine. That's a discount when you consider who that pitcher is. That's a $10,000 pitcher easy on DK in a normal year. 7,600 is just a stupid broken price on the FanDuel slate, so it's easy to go to on FanDuel. But I think that's a very good price and a good option, especially if he's under owned on DK. All right, guys, with that in mind, good luck. Go win something. I appreciate everybody. Hit the like button. Hit the subscribe if you haven't. Jump into the Discord with any other questions, or if you just want to chat and hang out, I'll be around. See ya.